Right now, the crypto market is on fire. Bitcoin is near at all-time highs. Altcoins are starting to really move and on the cusp of breaking out. But this is where 95% of the market fails. What's about to play out over the next few months is what is needed for people to make money, and that is a proper exit strategy. What most people do is they get euphoric, they get greedy, they start to change their price targets. Maybe they don't even have price targets, and this is where the round trip occurs. On a downward swing, if you miss that top, it can be up to 2 or 3 years of pain and downwards movements. So in this video, you're going to learn the exact framework and learn the system that I've utilized to make life-changing amounts of money in crypto, and the same framework we've used to teach over 1,000 active clients of ours here at Collective Shift, and the same process that we share and teach for clients of ours such as institutions like Coinbase, CoinSpot, SwiftX, etc. So if you don't plan your exit strategy now, you will regret it later. The time is now. Get prepared before the wave comes. Build the house before the cyclone hits. Don't wait for the cyclone to hit before you start figuring out. Let's get into it today. First, you need to understand the psychology of selling before you can actually get into it. I'm currently here in my hotel here in the US. I'm traveling at the moment to work with our clients to help them in person in Miami next week build their own sell strategies. And the biggest part around sell strategies is you can have everything written down on a piece of paper. You can have your Excel spreadsheets, but if you don't have your head mastered, this is where it's all going to go wrong. I made the same mistake 9 years ago when I first got into crypto. I made life-changing amounts of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars when I was like 18 years old. And I round tripped the entire thing because I'd never made money that fast. This is what people don't understand in crypto. You can make a lot of money really quickly on paper, but it's the same reason why 98, 99%, I can't remember what the stat is, of people that win the lotto, that win all that money really, really quickly, end up becoming bankrupt or homeless. It's because the human brain is not wired to make that much money so quickly. All right. Now, crypto isn't as much as the lotto for some of us, but the idea of being able to take advantage when the market's going up and sell down against your crypto is the hardest thing to do. When I made most of my money back in 2021, I was investing really heavily into the metaverse back in 2019 and 2020. And I remember at the time when I made those 20, 30, 40x returns, literally sitting there looking at that money on the screen to then execute and sell was the most painful thing I'd ever done. It actually felt nauseating. It felt sickening. Why is that? Well, the idea of euphoria and greed and dopamine is that you want more of it. And the idea in a bull market is that your portfolio is going to be rapidly growing. So for you to sell at that time, your brain is telling you you're going to miss out if you sell. So what ends up happening is most people don't sell because they think it's going to continue going higher. And that is usually the top signal or close to the top. When you do miss out, you don't actually sell, you don't hit the execute button because the mind and that psychology can take over. Now, looking back, after I had literally sold hundreds of thousands of dollars, I literally started with nothing 9 years ago. I was sharing a bunk bed with my brother. We didn't grow up with a lot of money. To actually look at that money in my bank account at the time, I think it was, I don't know how much it was, in the hundreds of thousands. Actually, here's a screenshot I can share with you. This was actually back in 2021 when I was taking this money out of my bank, out of my crypto and arrived in my bank account. I couldn't go too much further back than this, but there was, I can't remember exactly. It was in the hundreds of thousands. To actually see that arrive in my bank account was absolutely wild. And that changed my life. And looking back at all of those projects, guess what? Most of them are dead. Narratives come and go in crypto, and this space is moving faster than ever, and you can get sucked into the hype. All right, back in the start in 2017, it was ICOs. Then in 2021, it was metaverse. It was also the NFTs. Previous cycle was also meme coins. And you look back, and a lot of those projects come and go. So you need to understand psychologically to take advantage of that moment. It will not last forever, and you have the opportunity to change trajectory of your life from crypto wealth if you act appropriately. Now, I'm going to share with you now the different frameworks and actual sell strategies you can follow once you've mastered that mindset. Now, there are a few common scenarios that usually plays out whether you're new to crypto or you've been around for a long time when it comes to expectations and what you think is going to happen in a bull market, how you think you're going to execute your sell strategy, and then what actually happens. So the first one here is your expectation. Your expectation at the moment, with the future in mind, knowing the market's going to continue to go higher, is your expectation is you're going to sell the top. This is what most people do. You think that it's so easy to actually sell the top, and maybe you're smart enough now to realize that that's actually not the case, but you try and sell the top. But the reality is the top of a crypto market literally only stays within that top few percentile for sometimes hours, depending on the altcoin, sometimes days for Bitcoin. So if we look at the last cycle, this top of the chart here, Bitcoin lasted in the top 5% of the market for 3 days. It was in the top 10% for 16 days and top 15% for 33 days. So you're essentially waiting sometimes up to 4 years for like 3 days. It's not that easy to actually pick the top. Now, if you look down the list, if you go to meme coins, this was Dogecoin. It was literally in the top 5% for less than a day, top 10% for a day, and the top 15% for 4 days, top 25% for less than a week. Now, again, that is a huge difference. Your sell strategy needs to match reality. Don't let euphoria and greed take over, and don't wait to the absolute top to pick it, because if you miss it, it is a long way down before you can go again, and it's a long wait. And trust me, it's painful, it's gut-wrenching, and I know for a lot of you, like I did when I started, you get very excited, you start taking screenshots, you share it with your partner, your family, your friends, look how much money I made. That guilt and the shame that you feel when you round trip, it's pretty painful, because I've been through it. So the exit strategy is so important. Now, once you understand the top of the market only lasts for literally just a few days, sometimes hours, depending on the altcoin of the market, these are the different scenarios that could play out. Again, you think you're going to sell the top, but what actually happens is the oh no scenario happens. This is when greed takes over, and what 98% of people do is this happens. You want to sell at the top, but you miss it because you got too greedy, you got too excited, and you didn't take profits. What you're supposed to do, in my opinion, and how I've made money in crypto, is take chips off the table as the market goes up, because that downwards period is so painful. That 95% correction for some altcoins is just horrific. What I do in the likely scenario to help you make the best decision as a busy investor, because I help people that are executives, career driven, busy oriented people that don't have time to be looking at the charts all day, this exit strategy is the best to follow without having to do all the work on your own. All right. So selling and taking profits on the way up is a really good way where you don't have to time the market perfectly, and you don't have to try and figure out some like crazy blueprint, to pick the absolute top, because it's not going to happen. Looking back, it's easy in hindsight, but in the moment, very difficult. So trying to take advantage of market euphoria and looking at it logically and removing that emotion, for me, is about taking percentages off the table as it goes up. And this is what I did back in the metaverse. This is what I've done this cycle already. Syrup, an investment of mine, has already done 1,000% mid-cycle, because I was able to get access to that in the primary markets, and the primary markets are essentially, getting access to DeFi and projects before they get listed on the exchanges. That's a different video that we'll cover for a different time. But once you get access to the good projects, it's about selling, and taking chips off is the most important, simple way to actually make money in crypto. And this is an example, as I mentioned, here's from February to May. This is when I was taking chips off the table as it went up. The goal here is not perfection, folks. The goal is not to pick the absolute top. The goal is to make sure you don't stuff it up and you're protecting the downside. It's all about risk to reward, from my opinion. If you can stack those chips, stack those profits while still maintaining exposure to the market, then that gives you the best opportunity to make money without feeling that FOMO that you're all out. So many people think about this as like black and white, like I'm all in or I'm all out. It doesn't work like that. If you sell everything, guess what happens when the market keeps going up? You're going to get FOMO. You're going to feel like you're missing out. And then what I usually see happen for people that have made the best decision, they've finally taken profits, but then they did the worst thing, which is take everything off the table, is then they then throw it all back in and try and chase the top. And then they buy back in and now it goes down. Crypto has this crazy way of just making you feel like you're going insane, like you can never win. You probably felt this before, right? You buy in and it goes up and you didn't buy enough, or you buy in, it goes down and you bought too much. Same on the way out, all right? You sell, right? You take profits and it goes down, or you didn't take enough profits, but you sell and it goes up, you took too much. So realizing that psychologically crypto is going to play mind games, but coming back to your strategy, and the sell strategy is one component of the 7-step strategy process we teach, because that 7-step strategy process encompasses everything. Having the goals aligned is one of those steps that you need to make sure you have. But the sell strategy, again, keeping it clean, keeping it simple, and not letting the mind take over is really important. Now, if you follow this approach, you can literally nearly guarantee you're going to take profits every time and nail every single cycle, because of the strategy you follow where you're not trying to time the absolute top. Now, Chris is one of our platinum clients. He came to us, he had 80 different coins, he had no plan, he round tripped the first cycle, joined us, and I helped him one-on-one through our platinum program literally take advantage of that proven strategy. He paid off his house through that exit plan, still has crypto for the long term, and he's building that portfolio now for the remainder of the cycle, and now he's living debt free. And he's a busy dad, he's a consultant, he's got kids, he's got a lot going on, and now he's debt free and he's rolling that crypto into the next cycle. This is what looking and joining that 5% looks like. If you want to see the exact process and that 7-step plan that I just spoke about, click the link below. I've got my free training where I just download and go through a lot more into this process, as the exit strategy is one piece of it, but there's actually 7 steps we take people through. Chris is one of those. He's crushing it. Join the 2%. Now, this is the part that nobody talks about. This is getting your house in order before the cyclone hits. Remember, I spoke about that before. You don't wait for the cyclone to hit to build your shelter. You build your shelter before it comes. All right. This is about getting prepared. And now the market's really heating up. We know that there's still a number of months to go, in my opinion, in this cycle, but you want to be prepared now. Where is your crypto crypto? Do you have it on the exchange? Do you have it on a decentralized exchange? Do you have different wallets? Do you have it in cold storage? Where is it? You need to get everything prepared. Where are you selling it to? Are you selling it to USDC? Are you selling it to other coins? Are you selling it into Bitcoin? Are you selling it in altcoins, like into cash? What are you doing? Do you have your tax structure sorted? These are the questions you need to be thinking about. Even like, how long has it been for a lot of you that have been in crypto for a long time since you've actually moved crypto from your wallet, right? If you've got it on a cold wallet, right? Dust it off, understand it, get your house in order. This is really, really important. Even just give it a test run before the market hits, because if you're scrambling at that back end of a cycle when the market's really euphoric and going and you're trying to like figure out like what your seed phrase is because it's been a little while, all right, that's what's going to stuff you up. If you're new to crypto, then having a really simple structure and plan is so important. All right, what I say to my clients all the time is that reduce the complexion. The more exchanges you have, the more wallets you have, the more noise, the more everything, the harder it is to actually execute. If you've got the same coin on multiple exchanges, literally simplify it. Can you use one less exchange? Can you use one less wallet? What can you do to really simplify the process? That will make it so much easier on the back end to actually take profits. This is the basic stuff that a lot of people don't realize brings people unstuck. All right, this is what you need to be prepared, that foundational level. Get back to basics. So for those of you that have larger holdings that we primarily work with, if you've got more than $100,000 in crypto, you want to look at things like OTC, like where can you get, exit liquidity that where you're not going to be wiped out on fees and spreads. We have a lot of exchanges and introductions that we have with our clients where you get the cheapest fees, cheapest spreads. If you're using a lot of the major exchanges, you're going to get, pretty much annihilated on the fees. All right. So making sure you have good off ramps. Where are you putting that crypto? Are you looking to reinvest those profits back into the market? Well, then stable coins is probably a good play. If you're wanting to diversify, like my strategy right now is like I'm 100% allocated to crypto. I want to sell down to start to diversify into property stocks. I've recently done that. One of my biggest goals this cycle was to buy my parents a property. I've always rented. It's been really exciting to go through that process. Going through it right now, I took profits and I put that in cash because then I obviously want to buy a property. But for the remaining, those altcoins that I still have in my portfolio for the remainder of this cycle, I'm most likely going to sell down. Some of that I'm going to put to property to accumulate other assets, generate an income. That's another thing we speak about, but that's for our clients. And the other side of it is to stick in stable coins to then reinvest and accumulate more Bitcoin. I want to ultimately buy and accumulate more Bitcoin because that is the asset that I want to grow. That is the asset that I know long-term I can lend against. And then that's how I can not have to sell my Bitcoin and then buy and accumulate more properties as that tax structure and advantage. So knowing what your tax structure is as well is so important because that's what's going to help you accumulate and not get whacked by the tax man. So when you're thinking about your sell strategy, what other things are you thinking about in terms of your tax? For those that you are in Australia, are you holding more than 50% capital gains discount? Like I'm in the US right now. Are you thinking about what structure, what entities, LLCs? Are you looking at your 401k? How are you thinking about it? Do you know the tax requirements for the structure that you're in? That's really important because that's what's going to save you a lot of money as well. So once you've got that prepared, what is the actual sell strategy that you're going to use? All right. So this is the same framework that I personally use, and there's 3 or 4 different ways as to how to think about selling and the different processes we teach. All right, I'm going to cover all 4 now. Okay, here's the first step. So this is the first stage. This is the percentage-based strategy. So that's very, very simple. All right, literally looking at different sell points. These are just examples, by the way, and literally just selling a percentage of your stack, your entire portfolio, or a percentage of an altcoin at certain sell points. Now, these might be sell points that you come up with. You might look at some of our price targets and use ours. You may look at someone on the internet. Whatever it is, it's as simple as it comes, and that is just literally selling a percentage of your stack at certain price targets. The most common mistake people make is what I see is people will set a sell target, but they don't have any up-to-date information around that sell target. Meaning that if the market is moving, it's growing, and maybe the market's going to outpace that sell target, they don't actually change it. This is what happened to me back in 2021. When I was investing in the metaverse, before it was even named the metaverse, I thought that narrative was going to be big. I set my sell targets, but what actually happened was the bull market got so much bigger and greater once Facebook renamed to Meta that those targets got blown out of the water and I adjusted them. Now, I adjusted those sell targets based on data, not based on just my emotion. That was the right thing to do. Now, what some people do is they actually adjust their sell targets based on emotion. That's that greed thing. So you need to make sure when your sell targets are there, it's updated based on the latest data and insights that's happening in the market. That is really, really one massive thing that you need to be aware of. Again, having, for me, the biggest advantage is my team, my analysts, right? That's what made the biggest difference because I can't stay on top of crypto. I'm busy. I'm doing stuff. Like I'm helping people. I'm creating content. Like I'm doing the strategy. I'm really good at strategy, but in the weeds of the analytics and the data, oh my goodness, no chance. That's why I hire 19 full-timers in my company Collective Shift to help me and our team invest well, and most importantly, our clients. That's why the business model works, right? We have more clients, we help them win, they make money, we make money, we hire more analysts, and then we get better insights and we invest better. So you need to understand where that data is coming from. Do you have an edge, or are you just listening to what everyone else is? That's really important. Okay. The next one here is time-based strategy. You can just literally, as simple as it becomes, think about like if you believe in whether it's the crypto cycles or whether it can be literally just like intervals where, okay, in the next 12 months, I need to be fully out of crypto. I might just sell a percentage of my target based on the time we're at. So Q1, I'm going to sell 25% 25%, Q2, et cetera, et cetera. That's for people that have a little bit more like focus on needing the money back at a certain time, if that makes sense. The third one here is dollar cost averaging out. So like, again, trying to pick the absolute cycle top is, in my opinion, flawed. So this is something that I use personally. So this is when you take percentages out or an amount of your crypto on the way up. All right. Again, it comes back down to data and insights and analysis. And that's what I'll share again in a second, how I think about it as to when you take these. But rather than looking at like predetermined levels, you're essentially just taking out certain amounts of your crypto at certain points in time. And that might be a combination of time-based, price-based, market-based, sentiment-based, whatever it is. But the dollar cost averaging out for me is a great strategy. The last but not least here is just literally taking money out based on like unrealized profit or loss. So as an example, once your profit of a certain altcoin gets to 50%, 100%, 200%, you liquidate a percentage of those holdings. I know a lot of people, like once they double their portfolio or double their coin, they take the initial out as an example. That for me is a good way, especially on the altcoin side. I like to do that if I'm playing a higher risk game. So recently I invested into a MemeFi project. Again, it did a 10x for me, which was great. I took out 1/3 of that about halfway through. I think it was about maybe 600%. I can't quite remember. Took a third out, which was my initial investment times 3 or 4. That way I was always in profit if it was to ever go down. I recently sold that project because it hasn't played out as the way I would have thought, but I locked in the profits. I actually made money and now I'm out. All right. And that's, as an example of a strategy where you're protecting your downside without just like continuing to compound and hope for the best as it goes higher than ever. All right. And then eventually round trip, take profits as it goes up. So they're the four common ways there that people take their profits. Now, I want to share with you my personal strategy and the data that I use to help me indicate when to take profits. So here is how I took profits recently on a project called Syrup, who a lot of you may have followed me for a little while, know that I was a big believer in this project. This is the same strategy, my exit strategy that I used back in the metaverse that made me, literally hundreds of thousands of dollars. And also now in this same cycle, how I'm executing my sell strategy. Now, the most important part here is that I use a mix of dollar cost averaging out, percentage based. I look at the altcoin allocation as an entire percentage of my portfolio. So I'm not only looking at like the altcoin and how that's performing, but how it is in terms of my entire portfolio allocation. That's another step of the 7-step strategy process, is looking at the entire portfolio allocation, and then up-to-date data and insights. That's the most important part. So for me, data and sentiment specifically is very, very important. That is what we focus on at Collective Shift, and it's when we actually take profits, is based on the market. So Syrup, as an example, I got in around 5 cents, climbed to at the moment about 41 cents. I took profits around 33 cents for a few reasons. One is that fundamentally the project was now roughly a $400 million fully diluted valuation. The analyst and I did a deep dive. We felt that was a far more sort of fair market value to where the price of the asset was. And then sentiment wise, Pompliano actually tweeted about Syrup for the first time on Twitter, and it really started to gain mainstream adoption. It then got listed on Coinbase. It then got listed on another a lot of these major exchanges. For me, bang, huge red flag. That is the sell point, because now we're hitting mainstream adoption. So sentiment, fundamentals, and on-chain, the three things that we covered at a simple level, that was big indicators for me that now is the time to start taking profits. I took that, and actually what actually happened, we ran up to 41 cents. I think we ran to 60 cents, and now it's pulled back. A classic showcase of getting in early into the primary markets that we teach at Collective Shift, how to get access to tokens before the major exchanges list them. By the time they get listed on the major exchanges, usually that is now too late. Not always, but this was a case that was the same that played out, and it allowed me to take profits, and now I'm buying my parents a house, which is absolutely epic, right? So it's a mix of a few different things, but the right strategy at the right time can lead to literally life-changing amounts of money, and having the right data and team to help has been the huge, obviously the big winner there. Having the right mindset amongst all of this is literally the most important thing, all right? It allows you to execute, going beyond the ego, going beyond the greed, and allows you to be logical, and allows you to make the right decision and not get wrecked, all right? And this is what the top investors do. They put their emotion aside. They ignore the noise that happens online. Crypto influencers, YouTubers. Actually, this happened to me in 2018, 2019. I started getting sucked into a YouTube influencer who was giving me some, he was pretty huge at the time. I can't remember his name. And he had this like technical analysis framework, ideation, blueprint. He knew everything, right? And we all know this. We listen to people online, TikTok, Twitter, whatever. Everyone's got the blueprint. Everyone's got the secret sauce, right? Everyone knows exactly what's going to happen. Well, newsflash, no one knows. All right. This is such a new asset class that no one knows. All right. But I got sucked into that. And I listened to this crypto YouTube influencer, and it was telling me how this like algorithm thing was basically saying, that the market was going to retrace. Bitcoin was going to go down from, I don't know what it was, 30,000 down to 5,000, whatever it was. So I panicked. All right. I got emotional. I got worried. I started getting scared. I didn't want to lose my crypto. So I sold half of it into stable coins to then, reinvest down the bottom. And again, I know a lot of you do this because I speak to everyone. It's like, I'm going to sell here and then rebuy at the bottom. Guess what? This guy was wrong. He was completely wrong. He since deleted his YouTube channel. Haven't seen him since. And I got sucked into the emotion. All right. And this happens time and time again. The noise, especially in a pullback of a bull market, they're so normal. We look into these pullbacks and fundamentally they're just they're technical drawdowns. These dips are great times to buy, but what actually happens, people get fearful, they get sucked in, the noise, they start overthinking it, and they get worried and they lose. Your mindset is the most important thing. I recently bought a lot of crypto in that dip that we just saw, in the last couple of weeks, because I see this time and time again in the last 9 years. Take advantage when the retail get panicked and spooked. All right. And it's what I share with my clients when, I buy and sell, we share all those alerts back because again, we're just scooping up cheap assets because our mindset is now weathered. I don't care about these corrections. I get excited about them now. Reverse engineer, rather than getting panicked and fearful and all this sort of stuff, get excited about corrections because usually, unless it's the fundamental breakdown or the cycle is actually over, then you want to be worried. But usually we just see these technical drawdowns, volatility, derivatives. We get the domino effect where, people get spooked and you accumulate and buy. All right. That's really important. All right. When the market's really rallying and people are getting excited and euphoric, sell into strength, flip it. The classic Warren Buffett, be fearful when people are greedy and greedy when people are fearful. It's the exact same truth here in crypto, but people forget. Sell into strength, buy into fear. It's very easy to think about in your head, in theory, but harder to execute. All right. That is so important. Flip it. Stop following the retail. Stop following what everyone else is listening to and understand you need an edge because 2% of people in crypto make money. 98% of people lose because they follow the same people and idiots online who have no idea what they're doing and just sharing entertainment content to get your eyeballs to watch their content so they can literally monetize you through views and their affiliate links. What are their incentives? Follow people that you trust that have proper independent research to actually help and get that mindset right. Before I had my mindset right, again, I sold down half my portfolio in the early days because I got worried and fearful and panicked. Then I got my mindset right. Then I had a performance coach and I learned about psychology and I learned about euphoria and greed and I built my exit strategy, and that's what's changed the game and made life-changing amounts of money for me. The mindset is what changed the game. It's what a lot of people don't understand. And here's the truth. This discipline doesn't come overnight. You can't fast track your ability to be disciplined, and you can't fast track your ability to understand how these markets work and what it's going to change and what's going to impact you. But what you can fast track is getting the right information to get prepared before the storm comes. And that's where you are right now. Keep applying all of this that I said today. Keep applying all that strategy, build that exit plan, monitor it, work on your mindset, and that's what's going to make the biggest change. Apply that, and that's what's going to help you win. So now you know exactly what to do to actually take profits and take chips off the table as this market goes up to avoid round tripping and avoid all the pain that most people go through. If you want to dive deeper into the analysis, that 7-step process that we use to help primarily busy people that have their career, like some of our clients like Ron or like Chris that, literally had 80 different coins, no plan, no exit plan, he round tripped a cycle and he wanted to really pay off his house, then honestly, check out my training below. I've put together our best stuff to give you a teaser of what we charge out thousands and thousands of dollars for our clients to get access to that 7-step process. Think about that mindset. Click that link in the description below. Get prepared for this cycle, and I'll see you very soon.